be our programming person for the day and present information and demonstrate on how to make different types of flower or floral arrangements.
I was saying to somebody, I don't know how many times I've presented this or taught this, but I still spent about 6 hours getting ready to put this all together to try to simplify it, to make it user-friendly. And I think that that's, I think that's really important to encourage people to design, and also just so that you enjoy it and you feel like a direction, because there really is a set plan when you're arranging anything. It's like arranging your gardens or window boxes. There's a plan. So I'm going to give you some of my tips. So let's see. So I handed out, it's basic shapes, just to give you some idea. Every arrangement that you're going to make, every design, has a shape. It's just, that's what it is. So it's part of the elements of design. I'm going to read through some of this and then briefly, and then I will touch base on it and show you examples within each arrangement. So shapes or forms are created with lines. So with the handout, you'll see the darker area is the line in order to create the shape. So if you're able to visualize what that shape would be, that's what you want to keep in your mind's eye when you're arranging, so that you have some sense as to what the shape will be. Now, why do you really need a shape? A couple of reasons is because you usually have a budget. It's either a financial budget or a flower budget. You don't have an endless amount of product that you can always use. So if you can see that silhouette of the design, then it helps you create and stay within those lines. So your lines create the form. And so the form is three-dimensional, so that it's just not a flat piece. So I just want to make a point on that. Sometimes when people are making arrangements, they have a tendency to put all their flowers very straight up. And you need to keep in mind, if you're a gardener, which I'm assuming you all are, your flowers don't grow straight, like straight little soldiers. They're going to bend slightly different ways. So if you work with your flowers in the same thought process, it creates a more natural design rather than everything just going straight in, unless you're making a parallel. But that's a good thing to keep in mind. Now, if you're doing a mass design, which I'll be doing, then the flowers are all very close. That's intentional. That shape is round. The first design is going to be an ikebana. So with the ikebana design, it's very important for a void between flowers or open space. It's not empty. You need to think of it as an important aspect in creating your design, because that open space or the void allows you to see the other flowers individually, where if they were on top of each other, you wouldn't have that ability. So space is definitely positive and negative. Textures on the surface. Another element of design is texture. This can either be touching it or visually looking at it. So the difference would be something really soft and round like the ranunculus obviously have a very different shape than a grass. So textures become a big part, because sometimes what's repetitive is you're repeating the same shape throughout the same shaped flower throughout the whole design. But occasionally you want to have a little bit of contrast. So using that contrast of maybe a grass or maybe a lily instead of a round flower creates that contrast, because contrast is good. Sometimes it kind of makes you appreciate some of the other locations. And of course, fragrance. Fragrance is just part of it. The size of your design, and I think Paula was talking about the design show that's going to be going. Size is incredibly important. Whenever I would book a job for a venue or anything like that, I always want to know what it's being used for, what's the location, how is it going to be seen, What's the audience? Is there a theme? So these are all the questions that you ask. So by the time you get through asking the questions, which I think in the booklet for competition or doing designs, gives you all that information. So a lot of the what if or what will I do is already answered. So you just follow those. Today I had a hard time because I was told by Nancy, just do whatever you want. So of course I thought of about 30 different things that I wanted to do. So narrowing it down was a bit of a challenge. And then of course the color. And the color goes into that whole visual thing. That's another whole study in and of itself. I don't focus too much on the color wheel. I usually do more what I want. Meaning, when I picked out flowers today, for today's, I decided that the first flower I saw was this hydrangea, which I just loved. And when I look at this, it's very seldom you ever see a flower that is just one color to it. There's different grades in it. You may see another color in it. So, or maybe a nice strong contrasting color just makes it pop. So you have to kind of play with it to see what's inspirational. It probably wouldn't be, I'll make that arrangement and talk about it a little more. So the first one is an Ikebana. I think this is probably, for me, one of the best learning arrangement that you can start with for a number of reasons. The Ikebana, aside from it being a Japanese art, used a lot in their religious, but I find, get my notes so I don't go all over the place. It really takes in that whole visual look in the elements. Again, this is very important, the open space, but also very important because it teaches you to learn to look at the flowers and appreciate what the shape is, what the texture is, the way it curves, and so many other things. Now, in years that I've worked with people teaching them how to do design, this you have to let it just naturally flow this way. If you want it to go that way, you can't keep doing this. It's going to keep going back. But that's a pretty obvious example. But I think it's important. So sometimes you can fool Mother Nature. We have the cattails, which are fresh. I'm going to say I bought all my flowers local so that you can go and look for them the same way. I mean, I can buy things from my wholesaler. That doesn't really help you. So I've got the flowers from Shaw's in Falmouth, also Trader Joe's, and Roach Brothers. There are 3 local suppliers. The prices are reasonable. I'm going to say the prices are sometimes better than my wholesale market. The only difference is that you're limited as to what they can provide. Sometimes, yes, you can order things, but Shaw's, you have to give them a 4-week advance notice. They can't order anything other than that. So if you don't have a specific flower in mind, I think all the local people are good. So let's go back to this, Ikebana. The container is usually something that is a low profile that I've worked with. No, I take that back. The one that I'm going to arrange, it's called Moribana. And this particular style, you usually use a low profile container. Something that, I think across the board, usually something that's organic works great. This is a pottery. I did waterproof it, just so you'll know. But it has it got a little moist. So I did put some those little discs that you put on the bottom of your chairs on this, so that there's a little airflow. If you win this, or you're doing the raffle, I'm assuming. Okay. If this is yours to take home, I would just recommend putting something underneath it. Inside, I've attached a couple of, somewhere, right here and here, pin holders, flower holders. I always grew up calling them frogs. The Japanese name is kenzan, and I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. So what I'm going to do is, you need to know how tall your first flower will be. It is the width of your container plus the depth. So the width of this is 10, the depth is 2 inches, so the tallest flower will be about 12 inches high. Or, if you're not being judged, you just do whatever you want. So because this is straight, and I want to have some curve to it, and I'm going to do a triangular scalene triangle, my tallest one, and I want to do it a little bit off kilter, and I'm going to have the point towards the front. So some flowers, certain flowers you can manipulate to give them a little bit of a curve. And you don't want it to look too fake, again, but this will help. First things first, put some water in this. Actually, I can't, well, it's too late now. I can't tip it up to show you. All right, not anymore. Okay, so you can do this a couple of ways. We can put the flowers in individually, or we can put them in our hand and then push them in all at once. Now, these flower holders are secured with clay, floral clay. They also, I ordered them online, the most reasonable. They're plastic, they're not metal. The thing I like about that, they don't get rusty. So these have little suction cups on the bottom. So it adheres to the container, but I also put floral clay in there to secure it. So did I bring a ruler? I didn't. I'm going to guesstimate. I'm going to do flat cuts going into the flower holders. And it's just going to go right in the center like that. Now, sometimes what happens is this is too narrow and it goes in between. That works out okay, but sometimes it's a pain in the neck. So what I'm going to do is show you another way to make it go a little bit faster. I've got some purple Veronica. So this is 12 inches, let's say. Second one in, you go about 3/4 of the way down. Leave the leaves on that look good. What's the next flower? And I'm going to measure it out, so I'm going to just stick this in. I'm going to show you that technique a little bit afterwards. Sometimes these are too thin. That's what I was going to tell you. So what I'll do is I'll just take a little piece of tape, Oasis tape. It is waterproof, but you might need to bulk up these stems sometimes, and if they keep on moving and falling through, it defeats the purpose. Little tiny piece of tape. I'm going to wrap it around the very tip, just to bulk it up a little bit. And I'm going to put this one here. So because that's a little bit sturdier, and I want a little more curve to it. Okay. So I know this is my height on the first one. I'm going to eyeball this, measure it. So I think, Paula, you were saying that some of these are kind of freestyle. You can just, it doesn't have to always be super elaborate. I'm going to turn this out a little bit so it starts to bend out this way. And I think I want this shorter. And I want to angle it. And it's not angling, but I'll deal with that later. And then the other piece I'm going to put in is, I wrote down everything I'm going to do. Cattails, and then some ranunculus. So the ranunculus is a great piece for the bottom because it's going to help cover. That was stupid to put water in there. I may dump it out. See, it's not always easy. I always hear my father say that. It's not always easy. Because I want to show you. So let's pretend. So these are just pushed right into the center here. I'm going to establish the other. I'm going to take this one here. And I want it maybe about 3/4 of this or a half. And I'm going to keep this little piece because it may just be the trick. And I'm angling that out. Sometimes you need to lay your stem horizontal on those frogs because you want it at such an angle. You can't do it because they're stiff. Let's do another one. I'm going to take a piece of Veronica. See if I can bend it ever so slightly. I have a tendency to snap these. Another one that bends nicely is calla lilies. Sorry. Okay. So we've got this little guy here. And what I'm going to do is create a rhythm by repeating the shapes all the way down. I've got some grass that's going to go in. Now the thing with this design is that, and of course I need to tape that, thing with this design is that your space is as important as the filled part. And I'm taking a little bit of floral tape, again, putting it on the bottom, and bringing it down. My rhododendron saves me all the time when I'm doing arrangements. This one I'm going to lay flat. I'm going to use my individual leaves because I want to cover my mechanics. And this is going to go all the ways around the bottom of the pin holder. Just cut a couple. The water in the vase becomes part of the design. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the leaves and I'm pressing them flat onto these pin holders so that it covers the holders. And I may go back rather than you having to watch me do this over and over again. But it's just laying flat, boing, and you can see it's just going to cover that. So it's very simple. It's not meant to be tilted. And I'm probably going to put another ranunculus on the side. And I'm going to cut it very low. And I'm going to put one here. And the reason that I think this is a good design to learn is because it helps if you were doing something with like a vase and you just needed 3 flowers in it. This is not going to behave. Isn't this the way it always goes? Probably need more tape. The water becomes part of the design, one of the elements. There. So that you have, it's just simple. I would like to take some moss, because it's a nice organic element, and I'm going to then cover the base of the container. So it really just creates another texture to the whole thing, which I think is I think it's just really interesting. When I've taught this class in the past, everybody says it is so relaxing that they love it. I know, who would think, right? I've got some sedum. The greenery is nice. I would put the greenery in here too, just to create the base. And this has a nice shape to it. So I'm going to put a piece right in here and on the other side, and then I am done. Where did I lost the... It's somewhere. It will show up. Oh, here it is. And another piece of sedum. I love this. The bees love it. But it certainly just holds up great as a cut flower. And if you were to take a line, run it down here, run it this way and up, you'd have that scalene triangle. So again, we're still working in a shape. I think I'll add this a little bit to the side. Too long. The other thing with Ikebana, you always want all of the flowers angling up towards heaven. So sometimes they'll talk about the three focal points is heaven, man, and earth. Okay. We have another one. It's a mass design. It is going to be a round shape. And quite often what I'll do is when I'm working with this type, any kind of a clear glass, you'll line it with leaves or you'll line it with something. I didn't want to do that today because I want people to see, if you haven't worked with a flower, a clear glass to make a flower arrangement, I want you to see where the stems go. And often what I see is people are concerned about where the stem is going. They're not looking where the head of the flower is being placed. I care about where the head of the flower is being placed most importantly. And then secondly, it's where the stem's going because I want to make sure that it's either in the floral foam or underwater. So those are the two things. So the mass design, as I said, what makes a mass design? It's putting...
Did you put the tape on?
I've already put the tape on.
Right.
Yeah.
But you did that, right?
I did, yeah. Amy asked if I put the tape on. I did. So when you're working with something that is a large container, a clear container, something that does not have foam in it, you need to start with a grid. So the flower grid, it's either using greenery or tape. And the reason is if you're creating a grid, then what's happening is the flowers or the greenery or the tape is creating something that when the flowers are being put in, they're going to go through these holes. So if I try to put this flower in the center, it would absolutely fall all the ways over or fall out. That's probably not a good example, but that's the reason. So the other thing is when you start making your arrangements in a vase, or any kind of an arrangement, and I think this is for gardens, window boxes, or whatever, I always start with my largest flowers first because they're going to take up most space. Then I would do secondary, smaller. Or if I had a lot of one flower, that's where I would start. If I had one flower that was just very particular and I loved it, that would go in towards the end because I want that to be like in a highlighted spot, have it in a dominant area. You want it to say, hey, look at me, I'm really pretty, rather than because you're so excited you put it in first and then it covers up. So my biggest flowers are the hydrangeas that I'm using in this are also lilies. Now I'm going to say with lilies, I left them in the plastic because they're so finicky about getting hit. These are orientals. Lilies bruise very easily. You need to make sure if you're making it for anybody that they're not hypersensitive to fragrances. These have a strong fragrance. I love them, but you do need to ask. This is the place this is going on a centerpiece. It's a large table, seats 10 to 12 people. A couple of things with centerpieces, you know you need to cap it at about 12 inches. Anything more than that, it's going to be in the line of vision. So you really want to keep it 12 or lower. Sometimes people will say if I put my elbow down, I can see over my fist, that's a safe height, which is okay, except for the fact I had somebody work for me who was 6'4", a man, and he was just, that didn't follow the rules, so I'd always have to be handing him a ruler, like, you gotta measure it. So what I'll do is, and if you're doing a design in a vase like this, quite often if you're doing something in foam, you'll establish the height and the width and the depth. This is the different way around. This, you start from the bottom and you work your way up, because we have to build that grid to hold the center flowers. So I would never make an arrangement without water in there, but I already told you. You always want to measure. I know this is about a 14-inch width, so I don't want it any bigger than that. I love working on a turnstile if it's an all-around arrangement, because it needs to be viewed from all around, so you constantly need to be moving it. It's not fair to say, I don't think I like the people on that side of the room, so they get the ugly side. So I'm going to actually just go and measure it like this. I can see that I have to cut it here in order to bring it that length. Probably bring it a little bit further. Now, the thing is, sometimes people feel as though I have to take a step back. So what I did was I took my Oasis tape, which is waterproof, and I built this grid. So you can do 3 across, 3 this way, play tic-tac-toe, whatever you may want. But this is the grid that I put on. And then what I did after I put my tape on, I ran another tape around the lip just to hold it in place. When I'm all done, I will look to see if you can see the tape. Again, you don't want any mechanics to show. So this would go in like right about here. Now, what's happened with this is the opposite side. Whether I had tape in here or not, by placing this stem on the opposite side, it's going to help balance this flower to stay put. My friend rhododendron. I'm going to put a few pieces in. Not that it's going to create a grid, but it's going to soften this tape. And I'm going to take the extras off. I don't need them. I'm going to put, and when I'm saying soften it so that you won't see it so much. We're lucky that we have yards that we can, of course, then you always end up with spiders, little spiders, but we're lucky we have all this to, so this is just kind of softening that. I'm going to kind of measure this side. I measured again so that I know it's going to be, sometimes the stem's too long, you need to cut it a little bit short, see if that's good. I think we're good. This goes in here. My hydrangeas. If the leaves are bruised, you need to take them off. Always, always clean as you work. If you have a leaf that I like to use the natural foliage, but sometimes it gets torn. There's, what's it called? Crafting scissors, scrapbooking scissors. And this it's a zigzag, almost the exact same shape as the hydrangea. So you can just go in and trim that leaf and go for it. Now, all leaves probably are not going to be happy. I can't say all plants will be happy, but okay, so we got this one in. Okay, so here's another reason why I put my lilies in first, is because I want to be able to incorporate these buds, which will open. If I put them in towards the end, they're going to be too big and they're going to break that mass design. So I want them all within reason. I have a tendency to make my designs loose rather than tight. So now I'm looking at this and I'm like, nah, this is a little bit too helter-skelter. So I'm going to cut this down. It's always better to cut and recut than make that one cut and then you're stuck with it. Sometimes the tape behaves, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so I cut that one, and this one's too long. Okay, So I can see that it's going to poke out, but I'm okay with that. The other flower that I want to use is, so this is supposed to be a soft, romantic design that's going on someone's wedding table, and these are the colors that she's chosen, and nobody has a problem with fragrance. So I've got my roses here. I'm going to take the guard petals off. Now I have enough flowers in. I'm going to establish how tall I want that. This may be a little bigger than 12 inches. And I'm not taking everything out. If you're working for me, I'd make you. No, I wouldn't. Oh, God. Jerry made this. And what I'm doing is I'm now looking for space in between where I can place my roses. So the hydrangeas, lilies, and roses were purchased at Shaw's. They do have a nice mix. And I know I need to move my hydrangea up a little bit, and I'm going to put my rose right in the middle of the hydrangea to make it stationary. This rose is nice and full, and it's going to stay pretty much right in the center. Now this is a mass design, and I know that there's some lilies that the buds are sticking out, but I don't have the heart to cut it down and squish them all together because I just think they're too pretty. The other thing that I want to do is maybe put some filler in here. And this is chamomile. I found out today that I have an aster. Is it a wild aster? Or, yeah, that the birds have really filled my yard in. This I cut yesterday. I will use it in arrangements because it's really holding up. And so now what you do is you go in. Once you get all your large flowers in, you're going to go in and you're going to put in your fillers. So I'm going to do a couple. And I like to, again, clear everything off that's not behaving. And I like to take my fillers and put them in as a cluster. I find that they naturally grow as clusters. They don't. These flowers don't. You don't have one over here and one over there. You want it to create that organic design. So I have this whole thing here. Now, I'm not going to jam it all in because then it's going to look jammed. Take these off. And I'm just going to go through and start to put them in between. The other thing, I was talking about some flowers that are visually, there's a texture to them, variegation. So these carnations, which I really like, they have like a nice, that hot pink raspberry color, and then the tip is a very light pink. So that creates a nice texture when you're putting it together. And it also, you know what, it cuts the cost down a little bit also. When you're working with flowers, I'm taking off stems that there's no flowers, that have a lot of laterals. Look at it, because sometimes you can, that has to get cut a little more. Instead of just, this has one stem, I'm going to cut it, it will be two. So you can take advantage of having different lateral flowers, different stems that you can then place around your arrangement. Any questions? No? Okay, let's see. I don't think I missed anything. I have to fess up, I've never entered a competition, although I feel like every wedding, every weekend has always been going into a competition. They had their own rules that they didn't tell me about until I would deliver flowers. So I feel like maybe because of this group, and I know that it's really encouraging, that I would probably get brave and try to do some this year. Did I just hear yes from Alda? So we can just put, and then you can go back in and certainly trim. That's the nice thing about working with a vase, is that you can move things around. If you have foam, you don't want to overwork it. So this is a mass design. I will put some water in it. Okay. This one we're using floral foam. And I got this container from the swap shop, which is a great place to pick up containers. The problem with this was it was lavender, and I didn't like it. So I sprayed it. Design Master, sprayed it maybe 4 or 5 times, and I got this brown tone. I'm going to cut this so that it's slightly below the lip of the container. If I wanted something coming out the sides, I would bring the foam above it. Try to be neat. I was going to do this in the kitchen. Floral foam, if you haven't used it, only takes moments to soak. Don't push it down. You just put it in your cold water. You can put some fertilizer in it, and then let it soak on its own. Because if you push it, what happens is you often can get dry spots. So I'm marking this where the top is. I'll cut this a little bit short, because everything is going to be straight up. When you're putting foam into a container, you want to allow some reservoir on the sides so that when you add water, there's a place that the extra water can go. When you're working with fresh foam, you probably want to add a little water, ideally every day, but if not, every few days. Okay. So I think this is a good design for a food station. Because it's not going to be going into the food. This can be made 2 sides, so that if you're serving from both sides or just one side, that's up to you. But I like it because it's upright, so it's away from any of your food. So that with this, it's the strong vertical lines that are important. Again, the cattails. This one's broken, so we'll trim it. And I'm going to just do 2 pieces, I'm not sure. Now, rule of thumb, how high can I go? The height of the container plus, and then half. I know that's a rule, but I don't follow that rule. That's why I went into floral arranging and not sociology. So if I did it, here's 1, 2, it would have only been this high. I want something a little more dramatic. Cut my And are
those treated so they don't burst?
No, I'm glad you asked whether these cattails were treated or not. They really are much better out of water. So if you bring them home, enjoy them for a few days, and then yank them out of the arrangement and put it in a little thing, but they'll last quite a while out of water. So I'm glad you asked that. I'm going to do 2. So again, we have this space that's allowing us to visually look at the design. So we've got these beautiful cattails. I was thinking I was going to have to cut them and put on my muckers and go into the marsh and all the rest and try to avoid poison ivy, sumac, which I've always encountered, and Shaw's saved the day. So then I have the sorghum, which is kind of a wheat, and it usually has grass with it, but where did I get this? Trader Joe's. And I don't get any money from these people, but I should. So this one, I am going to, the pattern in this is vertical. So this is just nice and simple, I think. And I'm going to make this so it's two-sided. And the thing that I'm repeating with this, I think it's pretty obvious. I don't even think I need to say it. Anybody want to like shout it out? No. So it's all a vertical design. This one's going to be too heavy. So let's talk about proportion. I really wanted to do 3 different sections, but I didn't have a container long enough to accommodate that without it looking top heavy. So I changed it to 2 different parallel pieces. And so so what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to cut this right in half. And even though I cut it in half, it doesn't look like it's been given too much of a haircut. And I can use this, whoops, on the back side to kind of cover the stem. And I don't know if I want this or not. I'm going to have to think about it because it might be a little bit too heavy. Okay. I want to do some of these beautiful orange roses, which this morning they had a nice fragrance. So I'm wondering if it's a rose that has fragrance early in the day and then not later in the day. I don't know. I know orchids are that way. So depending upon what they're supposed to attract.
I never heard that.
Yeah, orchids, yes. A lot of times you'll have orchids that release fragrance in the evening to attract the nighttime insects versus daytime. I think that was the one thing I learned when I belonged to the Cape and Island Orchid Society. We're going to take this broken one off. The guard petals, which I started speaking about earlier, they're just what they are. They guard the inside of the roses. So if you see them and they're brown, sometimes you'll see roses that are black. On the outside, it's because of the really cool nights that help the development of the rose. To me, this almost gives me the same feeling as the Icabana, but it's not. This one I think I want a little lower. So you can see how this would be appropriate for a very narrow table. A mantle would be kind of cool if there was a mirror behind it. Or anything that's a narrow section. I'm going to put this one down. Like I said, you're better off to cut it 3 times. And I'm not pushing this into the foam. I'm just taking it, I'm measuring it, and then I'll cut it. You have to remember, your foam can get overworked. You keep cutting it and putting it in the foam and taking it out, you know what's going to happen. It's going to fall apart. I had a woman that took one of my classes, and I kept saying, you're putting too much in, you're going to have a problem. She's like, no, no, no. She had a foam piece that was probably as big as this, and by the time she got through, it looked like it was for an altar. And she called me laughing. She goes, oh yeah, she goes, I just watched it slowly melt onto the table. So sometimes with this, the stem is curved, so when you try to make it a parallel, it keeps turning on you. It's kind of it. And then I'm going to use a little, I wanted to use a little lily grass. So do you feel like, what am I missing? I should be telling you something that is everybody's going to be running to do this flower show. Hey, I'm doing it, and I'm petrified, so I know you wouldn't think. I have a tendency to overthink things. And then I'm going to cover the moss, the foam with moss. So obviously the rhythm, the shape is the whole vertical thing. I love working with moss because it hides things very quickly. And you don't have to spend a lot of time trying to figure it out. I do buy my moss. I'm sure that you could use some from your yard. We certainly have plenty of moss around this area. But you'd need to make sure you have all the critters out of it before it goes on to the centerpiece. I have a tendency to use Pachysandria, and the slugs love it. And I've often heard a few squeals from people. So I don't like creepy crawly things, but it is kind of funny once in a while. So this is our parallel design. Okay, let's do a freestyle. So this could be fun. Piece of driftwood. Unfortunately, I could not locate this around this area. You would think, living on the beach, we'd have lots of driftwood. No, Washington State. Email, but it worked out good. This is a great centerpiece for tables. It's a great accent piece for like an entrance door. I've used this style over and over again. It's great. So what I used was, this is an adapter. If anybody needs any stuff, just let me know. I probably have it. And I drilled a hole to accommodate this little rubber tip so that I could put it in to stabilize it. Worst thing you can do is try to make a flower arrangement without a stable base to put your flowers in. So frustrating. That's what's kind of frustrating when you're doing a vase design, because you can make it, deliver it, and it doesn't look quite the same. So, but you just make that accommodation for it. So this foam I cut. This is used to hold a hurricane globe. I cut this off, put this in. I used my floral clay again, wrapped it around the base, and put like a snake around here's coil, and put it on so that it's stationary. This is freestyle. And I'm going to use the sunflowers. Now I know using colored flowers in competition, not a good idea. But, so we have 3 natural and 3 tinted. Absorption dye. It will come out. You need to be careful. But all right, so I have to take a poll from the audience. Use the color, use the natural ones. Oh.
Thanks for the vote, though.
Man, I thought you'd go for it. Okay, so what's the focal piece on this? It's the driftwood. You don't want to hide it. I don't want to cover it. I want that to be very visible. So, but then when you add the sunflowers, a little competition. I'm cutting it right down. I'm going to hold it here and insert it into the foam. Now, if you have sunflowers and the petals are all wilted and go by, just pull them off, because then you have all the sepals underneath, and it's like another whole sunflower all over again. Very cool. I think it's very cool. I'm going to put, this is going to be another short one. And I'm going to put one on the back. Again, this is for a table piece and I've cut the foam big enough so the stems can go in. It's not going to fall apart. Well, that's the plan. I have made arrangements, and they have gone out on the pray to flower god theory, because you hope that they don't collapse, especially when you do stuff that's like 4 feet high. So, all right, where's my next thing? I am now going to use, I have the wrong notes.
So, Anna, when you have such a small reservoir for water, how long would you expect these flowers to last?
Well, this would have to be watered every day,
Okay.
depending upon, so Pat wanted to know how long something like this would last. You could water it daily, and you should probably get maybe a week out of it. If it's an arrangement that the expectation is for the event, then anything beyond the event is a bonus. I know that doesn't sound very nice, does it? But that's kind of the reality of it. So, but I bet you could get a week out of it. So I've got my rhododendrons again, and I'm going to just cut these off individually, put some in, and you know what I'm going to use to cover the foam? Moss. Because you do have to be very careful. Putting too many flowers in will dry that foam out too fast, and then also it may collapse it. So the more you put in, it's not behaving. I also want to I think I'm going to put one of these lovely roses in, since I want to do a little, let's see, free form. I think we'll make this one stick out. Let's see what happens. If you don't like it, let you be the judge and let me know. Then I think I would like to put some lily grass in. And I'm going to repeat this motion, going this way and this way. I think I'm going to take one of these guys and just give it a little bend. I want them all to go in together. Now sometimes, I have no idea where my tape is. Sometimes what I'll do is I will tape the bottom if I have multiple narrow stems going in together, and then I'll insert them as one unit. Because if I don't, it has a tendency to boing out. I don't think I like that. I don't. It breaks that line. And then I'll put this one in. Yeah. So what this is doing is kind of creating that flow. Again, staying with the line. It's important to have this space open. If I started putting things down here, it would become a different shape. So we don't want that. And you can put something down here. You can put some shells or whatever. This is a good Cape Cod design. Something other than using hydrangeas, which the world loves hydrangeas when they come to the Cape. Too bad we had such a limited amount this year. I got one bloom in my whole garden, and it's huge. It's gorgeous. It's this big. I know. This one I had bent the wrong way. I didn't like the creases in it, so I took it out. So when you're looking at your designs, I think what's important is that when you're looking at it, I don't like that at all, you need to be able to look at your arrangement. Now, if your eye stops somewhere and you want it to stop on that focal point or that dominant piece, that's good. But if it's going along, and then you want to say, why is my eye stopping there? It might be because you've broken the line, or the contrast isn't good. It doesn't have that nice visual balance, harmony that you probably were looking for. Like if I stuck this in, it just doesn't go with that crescent flow. So those are the things. I mean, I'm making it pretty, like, you know. I don't have this. What else should I use? Huh? Oh, the Veronica. I was thinking, yeah. Okay. See, it's sometimes it just takes a few extra people. It's nice working with a group of designers because then you feed off of each other. And it's nice to get, I think it's really nice to get that feedback. And then, of course, when you're all working together, the whole time you're saying, oh, that's beautiful. I love that. You're doing a great job. What a good idea. You're so creative. When we're on our 20th centerpiece. Now, this to me is sticking out too far. Sometimes you just have to try it. It's like, don't be afraid. I hit the bottom. So if it does move, you just have to. Normally I like to do things in threes, but I don't have three. And this, I do want it to be all around. So that just kind of brings it in a little bit. Okay. I'm trying to keep an eye on the time. Have an hour. And I'm not doing horticultural today, so I don't know if I like that. No. Did I say don't put it in and take it out? Sometimes you just have to lie. Don't do what I say. And then I think what I probably would do is go through with this sorghum, which I kind of like this texture. Did I use that other guy? Oh, it's in here. I hate to cut something up if I'm not going to use it. So I'm going to go in again. I have a nice core that I can then go in, trim it. I have a nice stem. Or I can pull these off, put them together as a little cluster, trim the stem all the same length, and put them in as a group somewhere. And you're just going to do that and go all the ways around. And then when I get to the point that I feel like I know I can't put any more in, I'll use one more rose. These are beautiful roses. Because I do want to be able to see this. I'm having a hard time with the back side. Okay, so now I know what I was having a hard time with. I was putting some of the flowers forward towards me, and I really needed to angle it to the side. And then I would just go in and add some filler. Now, filler, again, is the flowers that you put in after you put your major flowers in. So you don't, unless it's like a wildflower arrangement and everything is small, then you can start with your small flowers. But as a rule, they go in between the flowers. Why they're called filler flowers. But the drift, I think the driftwood is kind of cool. If anybody needs any, I have about 60 pieces that I can share. I think even if you had a really cool looking rock, you can just use, I always said if you can get some way to make the container hold water, use it. I've used, for a golf theme, buckets of baskets to hold for like the driving range and use those. Do arrangements out of those. I had somebody that had old shoes, golf shoes, and I used those and just put a cup inside each one, and they were centerpieces for tables. And it was people loved it. There was a retirement for somebody that was at Otis Air Force Base, and he was the superintendent of maintenance. And I went to the shop, and I got pipes and you name it, wrenches, anything that I could create an arrangement, I did. And that's what went on every table. And it was fun because it's kind of like doing something like this. And it's just kind of like this. Okay, so this cylinder vase, to give it a little bit of a different texture, I decided to put some stones in. I did wash them, but it looks a little murky. So I won't use the sunflowers because I was told not to. I'm going to use some of these ranunculus, which are just lovely. As a base, I'm going to use some hydrangea leaves. Now, if you have foliage, usually I always give it a shower. Foliage lasts much longer. Washed, give it a shower, put it in a plastic bag, put it in a cool location. Leather leaf does not hold up if you just put it into a bucket of water. It does not have the ability to draw enough water up the stem in order to hydrate these leaves. So what you want to do, shower, put in a plastic bag, put in a cool location. Basement is fine. Sometimes you have these broad leaves. You need to clean them up. This is, it doesn't stay wet like this, but it just gets rid of all of the debris. This is a Leaf Shine, Designer's Design Master. I don't know if you can see or not, the three I didn't. So I'm just going to build that little grid. Again, is one, this. So we're looking at up to here, which we can certainly accommodate because we have some tall pieces here. So again, it kind of gets you in with that heaven, man, earth. And then the flowers that are left, I'll make into a bouquet. So there's plenty of raffle items for today. So I'm kind of doing a fan shape. We'll make this all around. I'll use another sorghum. I like using the stones just to add a little bit of extra texture. It also is kind of in the same color palette as this, so it's repeating that. I've got some grasses. Thank you very much. The parking lot of Market Basket. Oops, I probably shouldn't have said that, huh? I put that in the center. I'm a good customer. And I think some roses. Anybody with questions? No? Is anybody feeling like some of the mystery might not be so scary? No? Lie to me. Say, yeah, I'm good. I'm signing up. And that's it, ladies. So I'm just trying to stay within that same shape. Oh, I do have one more. Typically when I'm arranging, I always have a vase that holds my flowers. They don't lay on a counter because I want them to stay fresh. Oh, look what I have. I think I'm going to put this around the neck. When I do vase designs, I usually like to have something, some greenery or whatever, to soften the neckline so it doesn't go from vase to flowers. Okay, I think this is a done deal. If there wasn't so much water in this, I would then go back and drop some stones in here to add some more stones to it to create it. But you know, you don't always have to stay within the vase. You can always move things out to give it a little bit and maybe pile it up. So you can, you know, you just have to, you have to play. And I guess that's the whole thing. Okay. You are done. Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you.